And we're live here on Night Shift following a very nice, easy UCF victory over Temple, 49-7. Welcome. I'm Eric Lopez alongside Andrew Gluchov. This is, of course, the Black and Gold Banner at Night Shift. We come on after UCF football games. And in today's show, pretty historic, Drew. We're making history. We're on all over social media. We're on our Facebook page, we're on Twitter, and on our YouTube page.
We're moving on up to the we're not going to the east side. We're going to the central side because this was a blowout. This was a win. Take it, run. You take advantage of what the team gives you, and feel good, celebrate.
No doubt. We're going to get into that game. We're going to be joined by a special guest in about 15 minutes. Also, reminder, you could send us your questions and comments all over wherever you're watching our show, whether it be on Twitter or on Facebook, and especially in our chat room here on our YouTube. So we'll see how that goes. And, of course, make sure you follow blackandgoldbanner.com for all the latest news and articles and much more. All right, Drew, let's get into this. This was a boxing fight. This would have been over pretty quickly here. This would have been a TKO. UCF dominated from the first, really, the whole game. Give me your thoughts here. I mean, watching this as the game develops, it's a good win, but UCF was a double-digit favorite, so we shouldn't be totally surprised, but still a good win. Maybe the best overall performance, at least in the Mikey Keene era for UCF.
Well, not only that, but if you actually go back into the annals of UCF history, the last time UCF won by 42 points was at Temple in 2019. So it must be something about playing in Temple that interesting things happen. Now, there didn't have to be any miraculous catches made that defied the laws of nature. But things happen when UCF goes to Philadelphia. And this was one of those games. Temple, their defense as far as injuries was worse than UCF's offense. Their top two tacklers out, another starting corner is out. I mean, their defensive secondary was absolutely in shambles. But, Coach Speak always says, you take what the defense gives you. They stack the box. They expect UCF to run, and UCF went over them. Mikey Keene had his best game by far as a college quarterback, setting a personal high in yards. His previous high was 194 yards against Temple. In fact, it was, he only had, or against Navy, the only game, which was against Navy, it was where he threw more than one passing touchdown. He threw two. So he had 5 coming in, and he literally doubled his career passing touchdowns in one game. And when things go well, things go really well. Case in point, he made a terrible interception. The throw was nowhere remotely close to the receiver. There was no coordination between the two, and it got picked off. What happens? Temple fumbles it, UCF recovers it, scores points. It was just that kind of day for the Knights. And at the very end, you're throwing that complete game shutout, and you just give that solo shot away in the ninth, where that last touchdown came in. But this was about as perfect of a game as UCF could have had, all circumstances, the way they are.
Mikey Keene, 15 of 21, 229 yards, 5 touchdowns, the 1 interception, as you alluded to. Isaiah Bowser, 19 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Johnny Richardson, 8 carries, 42 yards, and a touchdown. Ryan O'Keefe, Drew, I want to ask about Ryan O'Keefe, who has become the playmaker on the outside wide receiver. 6 catches, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns. This coaching staff, and we mentioned this last week, we had Trey Neal on while you were in the press box last week in the Memphis game. They're making an asserted effort. What I think I like about this staff is they're trying to make an effort to get the ball into their playmakers' hands. Bowser and O'Keefe have 2 of those, maybe the 2 main guys right now, with the guys being injured, with guys like Robinson out. And O'Keefe has delivered here, 6 for 72, 2 touchdowns. Holler had a big game, 4 for 87 and 2 touchdowns. But just talk about this staff making sure that their playmakers get the ball.
Well, Ryan O'Keefe had a rough first half. He had a gimme touchdown that was just flat out dropped. That's that little DR on the far right of his stat line. He did have some drop passes early on. They did pull him out, give him a chance to kind of hit the reset button, and he played great in the second half. Sometimes, momentum's a funny thing. That energy is contagious. And if you just got the wrong momentum kind of dogging you, sometimes being pulled, letting yourself kind of smooth out, hit that reset button is what you need to come back and have yourself a game. That's what Ryan O'Keefe did, and it worked out. It doesn't always work out, but it did for him. He led the way. They didn't have to rely on the running game nearly as much. Isaiah Bowser did not have to run the ball 33 times. They were able to move it around. We did see some Mark Anthony Richards in there. We did see a little bit of Johnny Richardson late. But when you stack the box like that, a good coach is going to adapt, and they threw the ball more, and Temple paid a price for it. That Alec Hollard touchdown, that big 33-yarder, he blew the coverage. The safety abandoned the tight end. He was wide open. There was no one within 3 zip codes of him, and he was able to just waltz right in. Take what the defense gives you. That was a good vision by Keene. We're seeing the development coming along. It's still a work in progress, but we're seeing progress. He still has a tendency to throw into multiple coverage on deep passes, and that one interception was just a really, really bad throw. His release tends to be a bit slow, and sometimes he stares down receivers and has late throws towards them. But you know what? It's all part of the process. It takes time, and we're seeing it's incremental. We're seeing little bits and pieces, so it takes patience. He was not supposed to play this year. We were never supposed to see this, part of the developmental plan. He kind of got thrown to the wolves, but we're seeing progress, and we need to appreciate that. UCF's now 5-3. They're 1 game off, being bowl eligible, which they can do next week against a Tulane team that, held on against Oklahoma, but then wet the bed a few weeks later. So you never know what they're going to do, but you're playing at home.
Push played hard against Cincinnati today.
Yeah, well, Cincinnati's the last 2 weeks has just not looked very, very strong, and I think they're going to be hitting the polls this time around. First time, okay, it's a coincidence. Navy sometimes a weird team, but sorry, you laid an egg for as long as you did against Tulane, and sure, you pulled away late, but too little, too late.
Well,
I should not have been as close as it was. For as long as it was into the second half.
I agree. We're going to get into that a little bit at the end of the show here, Drew, because I think you're right. I think people are going to get all mad and the system's not fair, but I mean they're going to deserve the drop.
This one's on Cincinnati. If they're mad, they have no one but themselves to blame.
And they knew it too. They've said it. But I want to talk about this defense. And by the way, we see Roger Greenberg chiming in back-to-back dubs in a row. Good vibes there. This defense, we had Trey Neal on last week. He talked about he's starting to see the players understand the system. Fewer assignments missed on a weekly basis. Your thoughts on this defense that took care of business. 7 points, obviously, this close to a shutout against Temple, but still dominant against, granted, an inferior offense, but they were the better, still played very well.
This was not a good defense even before the injuries. This was just a bad team. And I remember Temple, one of their players in one of their press conferences said, UCF's like USF, but better. And South Florida absolutely stomped them. So it was not a surprise that this game just got ugly quick. Once UCF hit that first score, they just never turned around. But again, you take what's given to you. And UCF's defense was relentless. Did not really give them an inch, and they really Temple could not set any real momentum. You have 2 different quarterbacks. Each are very different, much like the 2 quarterbacks UCF has. One's a passer, one's a runner, and you see that. But because they were playing from behind for as long as they were, it was not a surprise that Mathis, the passing quarterback, was in the game a lot longer than Lynch, the running quarterback. We saw Lynch a couple plays in the beginning of the game, second or third possession, and then he wasn't there until the end when they pulled all the starters. But that's normal for a game that the rug gets pulled out underneath you early on, and you're trying to catch up. On the flip side, Temple's defense is bad. UCF could do whatever they wanted, and They were dared to throw the ball and they threw it and had fun. It looked like they just had a flat out good time. And when you're happy, good things happen. And that's what happened.
Mike Doty has a question for you, Drew. Here, why did it take till game 8 for Gus to break out the tight end sneak? Is that what he said there? Obviously, the tight end had a productive day today. They haven't been much used in the offense. I guess it's probably what he's referring to there.
Well, again, you take what the defense is giving you, and Holler. This is his first real collegiate action this year. I mean, he's played special teams last year, which that I don't really count that for what we're applying to now in the offense. But we're seeing more and more of him because, one, he can catch the ball. He's working on his blocking technique because Jake Hescock is more of a blocking tight end than a receiving tight end. And when that coverage is blowing as badly as how Temple was doing it, you're going to hit your tight end. I mean, he was open countless times, and they took advantage of it. And I got to give Alec Holler a lot of credit. That guy's got some amazing footwork. He stayed in bounds on multiple occasions near the sideline that he easily could have gone out of bounds for being a big guy, but his agility helped him stay in bounds and score points. And I think that's underrated. And I hope they utilize him more because big guys are tough to defend. You're maybe a little bit quicker than a linebacker, but a defensive back's not going to have the height to go up against you. So I'm really excited to see how this new wrinkle builds into the offense going forward because, hey, we got a guy, and he's pretty good.
I agree. Bob, if you get, what was your thoughts on the telecast? Because that was a hot topic we both got ourselves in during the social media about ESPN Plus. Did you see it? What'd you think?
I mean, it needs work. What some people don't realize is the production is done by the home team. So the camera work and that stuff. They're the ones who decide who calls the games. They contract. It's a kind of an agreement between the schools and ESPN and all of them. So, it really falls a lot on them. And, I kind of view ESPN Plus as kind of like the minor leagues of television broadcasting. It gives students, recent grads, people who are just kind of working their way up, experience, hands-on work to learn and grow and hone their craft. Look at Lige Duzable, who's, still a relative newcomer to the realm of football commentary, and he still has work. He spoke really fast, and one of the things that is you have to learn is how to slow your words down. I still have sometimes I have trouble with it. Others have trouble with it. We talk faster than we think we talk, so you have to force yourself and make yourself think you're talking really slow, but the truth is you're not really talking slow. And that takes time. It takes practice. It takes a lot of effort. It's not easy. And that gives guys like Duzable, newer players to the game, an opportunity to kind of hone that craft. Because, you can practice, much like any game situation, you can practice. But when it's game time, a lot of different things show up, be it name pronunciation, speed of talking, the ums and uhs. It could be anything that causes, some sort of hiccup. And hey, the best guys weren't the best guys overnight. They had to learn, practice, and make mistakes. And ESPN Plus is really the best place to do it. So I take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. It could be worse. The game could be not televised at all, which I had this ridiculously long Twitter conversation that you were a part of with a fan who actually thought it would be better if the game wasn't on TV than on ESPN.
Yeah, that's like very nice. Like the only people that should say that are people that want people to go to the games in person. Like I could understand, ticket people saying that, not fans in general. But it's funny enough, Drew, we have a TV critic that's joining us, a man who's a UCF guy, a host of a popular podcast, folks. Let's bring him in. He is the co-host of the Sons of UCF podcast, which you can listen to all your favorite devices on podcast. Co-host on the Sons of UCF live show, the most watched Thursday night TV primetime show since Seinfeld, ladies and gentlemen, alongside Trace Troutko and, of course, UCF. Mike, I join, ladies and gentlemen, Adam Eaton making his debut here on the Night Shift Show. Welcome. Historic show.
It's the mid-afternoon shift.
It is. Yeah, I got used to this because I'm trying to watch games. I'm trying to talk about stuff. I think the most exciting thing about that was being called a TV critic. I've never heard that before. Thanks, Elo.
Well, you and I have been brought up. We've been guests on Jeff Allen's podcast to break down television. And I will ask about ESPN Plus in a little bit, but I want your thoughts on what we watched today here. A very complete effort for UCF, dominating Temple, and really a stressless day for a change.
Yeah, it was a good get-right game. I think, you kind of need one of these throughout the season. Guys get a chance to get some reps in. You get some confidence in. It's a good get-right game. Nobody got injured as far as we know. I know Matt Lee went out, and we saw JJB go out a little bit. Hopefully we go unscathed there. But just a good game to get everyone some reps, break a sweat. Obviously, you wondered if Temple was going to bring it after what happened to the Cows last week. Early on, you could tell they weren't. So complete performance. I like that everyone got a chance to sort of get the second half of the season off to another good start here. So overall, not much to nitpick. I'm going to have to find something to nitpick on the show this week, but not much to nitpick about what didn't go right today.
Oh, no, there's things. There's definitely things I can give you if you want.
I got a pen. I'll take some notes, whatever you got.
Well, Drew, this is your chance here. The tables are turned. Normally, Adam is asking you questions. Now you get to ask him.
Well, yeah. You as a casual fan, and we were just alluding to this. Do you find value of having the game available on ESPN Plus, where there's issues with production, the audio may not be great, the video may be not great? Would you prefer that over nothing? Because apparently that's a big conversation last night.
No, I don't think there's enough White Claws that would allow me to think that it would be better to not have the game on at all than have a less than stellar production. You have a mute button if you need it. The camera's not in the right spot, but I'm similar to you guys in age in that I remember games where we didn't have them on TV. We were just kind of waiting to hear what happened. You were trying to find any place that had something on TV back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the fact that I can literally watch every UCF game, even though it's not maybe the top quality production, I'll take that any day of the week and twice on Sundays.
Yeah, amen to that.
Now, Eric, real quick, I did do a little bit of searching, and I did find that UCF did have a 49-0 win over Tulane back in 2009. So it would have tied the record.
Brent Harvey, baby. Yeah, Brent Hodges.
Wouldn't have set the record. So it was a home game against Tulane in 2009. It was 49-0. Just had to throw it out there.
That's pretty good. All right, Adam, your thoughts on Mikey Keene? Obviously, a lot of focus on him. Your thoughts on him? Do you like the progression he's making? You still kind of have you're holding out some thoughts. What's your thoughts on Mikey after today's game?
Look, he played well. I mean, you can't deny the stats. 15 to 21, 5 touchdowns. If I'm reading this right, there's 5 drops that were credited to receivers. So essentially, that means Mikey threw 2 incompletions. So you can't argue with that stat line. I think Gus obviously protected him throughout the last couple of weeks. Elo's got a little tragedy going on there. Hopefully, you're okay, Elo. I think Gus protected him in terms of play calls, but he opened it up this week and look, there are some times where Mikey seems to be like, "Oh, double coverage. Let me throw there." I don't know what that's about. Hopefully, that's just a young guy doing young guy things. But he made some good reads. I like the fourth down. Gus put him in a high-low read that he could have gone to O'Keefe or he could have gone to Nate Craig Myers. He took the first down to Nate Craig Myers. So I think Gus is giving him opportunities to make decisions. I think that's where he's going to make strides. It seemed like today, outside of a couple of throws and a double coverage, he was at least trying to make some better decisions. I think Gus was giving him easier reads. So you saw the progression there. I'm not ready to anoint him the next Mackenzie Milton. I know that's the hot thing people want to do is go, well, he has more touchdowns than Mackenzie had as a freshman. I'm not really ready to go that rate yet, but you definitely saw him progress. Makes you wonder what changed against Temple. Was it just simply Temple's personnel and Gus saw some mismatches that he wanted to take advantage of? Did Mikey really show something in practice? Because we haven't seen this level of production out of Mikey, but you can't be mad at it, except for when he sees 2 jerseys of the other color near a receiver, feel free to throw someplace else. I'm okay with that. It's okay if you want to do that, Mikey. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I've noticed that over the weeks too, and that apparently that's still something he's kind of working out. So what you mentioned it a little bit, kind of in what you were saying about, with play calling. One of the recent critiques on Coach Malzahn was the play calling. Oh, he's only calling short runs or short passes, blah, 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 blah. Today, we saw a very different UCF offense than we had in previous years. Isaiah Bowser, only 19 carries. No one really had to carry the team, this time around. How do you feel that Malzahn adapted to what the defense gave him as far as moving forward?
Well, I mean, I assume he saw something in the defensive scheme that allowed him to break Alec Holler out of witness protection, because the tight end acclamation today was, I think, an added bonus. I also did not know Alec Holler was Tyreek Hill himself on the sideline there. But so my assumption is that Gus is looking at this game to game and trying to figure out, where's my schematic advantage? Where can I take some liberties from an offensive standpoint versus his defense? We saw obviously Temple secondary got a little banged up. We saw some of their top two tacklers were both out for the game. Now, I don't know that Gus knew that going into the game, but it definitely seems like week to week he's trying to find a bit of an edge. And, I guess if you want to play the cards of saying everyone thinks we're going to run because the Cows just ran for 6,000 yards on them this week, so let me do what they think we're going to do opposite and throw the ball. Sometimes I think Gus is, and this is one of my frustrations, feels like instead of calling plays, he's always trying to outsmart somebody, right? Instead of just going with what's working, going with something simple, he's like, aha, I got one. And he's always trying to come out with a secret trick play. It felt a little bit like that today, but in today's world it worked. But I'm just glad that he dusted off a tight end or two and got them into the pattern, because I think that's what Mikey's been missing. Somebody that he can look to, make an easy read, an easy throw and catch, not have to wait on a corner to break, not have to wait on a receiver to get separation. Somebody who's playing against the linebacker more times than not. I think the tight end part, it would have been huge for a young quarterback. So to see that dusted off today, whether that was Gus just going, hey, wait a minute, what are these other big guys over here? What do they do? Or whether that was him looking at Temple tape and saying, hey, this is an opportunity. Either way, I think I'll give Gus a tip of the hat here for being willing to do something different, because again, the witness protection program has been lessened by at least one with Alec Holler being released.
Well, and you and Mike talked about it on your podcast. I think before the season, you kind of thought there'd be tight end would be involved. Maybe what was it, over under 25 receptions? I think you brought that up on the Thursday night show. But in fairness, Dillon got hurt, so I feel like there's an asterisk there on that prop bet. Like, I feel like that should be thrown out, because we don't know what the tight end offense would have looked like if Dillon was staying healthy. Like, you would think they probably made it. Maybe it would have been more involved if Dillon was healthy. You didn't have to bring in a freshman who clearly was not planning on playing this year. I think that affected everything offensively, right? I think everything's got an asterisk this year.
Well, I think Gus strikes me as a doghouse coach where, I think we saw Jake Hescock with a brutal drop, I think, against Louisville. We saw Alec Holler with a couple of tough drops against Navy. And it seems like Gus is a doghouse coach. You make a mistake, you don't see that guy in the field next week. It seems like that's kind of his mentality. And I think for a while there, I think he maybe lost a little bit of confidence in the tight ends because Hescock just wasn't, the receiving threat that I think he'd hoped. Holler had played well against Boise, but then obviously had a couple of tough ones. So Gus strikes me as the ultimate doghouse coach. You a fumble on the field, you don't play next game. You miss a block, you don't play next game. His running back rotations just leave me absolutely confounded. His receiving rotations, one day Titus is in, one day he's not. Nate Craig Myers is in, then he's not. His receiver rotations leave me confounded. My assumption is that he's one of those guys where that's how he's going to discipline his team. You make mistakes on the field, you don't come back in. If you need any more proof of that, see Amari Johnson of the Willie Mays Hayes style over-the-shoulder punt return that hasn't been returned since. I feel like he's just a doghouse coach. If you make a mistake, you're in his doghouse. But Holler somehow broke free. He broke the chains and he's out. And again, I think at least for Mikey, every young quarterback, you guys know this, needs that security blanket. 3rd and 5, someone's running in my face. Where's somebody going to be at? You need that security blanket. If Alec Holler can be that, then I'm all in on it. I'd like to see Charlie Browder get a chance too. I saw he got one ball thrown again to him against Memphis, but I think the tight ends coming in would be a welcome addition to the offense.
You mentioned Willie Mays Hayes, and all I can think of nice catch, don't ever do it again.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Good old Lou Brown. Well, being from Cleveland, Major League is obviously one of my favorite movies, but I digress. So you talk about running back rotations, you talk about receiving rotations. Let's talk quarterback rotations, where in my opinion, there shouldn't be one. You look at this game compared to the prior ones, and this one probably had the least amount of rotation at quarterback until, later on, maybe a little bit here and there, and then King got pulled at the end of the 3rd quarter when the game was over. Do you think that his output today, where he showed decisive decision making, taking advantage of defensive missteps, and being able to thread the needle on a couple occasions. That touchdown pass to Brandon Johnson was absolutely gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous. Would I have thrown it into traffic? Not necessarily, but if you do it, make sure it works. Do you think that may play a little bit more in having Keene take a larger role in the offense as opposed to this really randomized, switcheroo that they keep doing?
A quick update: Michigan State beats Michigan 37-33 for those who are not watching that. I am not a fan of the switching quarterbacks in the middle of a drive. I feel like every game we have at least one or two of those where we try it and things break down. We got to call timeouts. Guys don't know where they're going to be at, and we end up wasting time calling timeouts. It happened at least once this game. I know it happened at least once last game. I am not a fan of that. If you want to give Gatewood an entire drive and say, this is your drive, I don't love that either, to be honest with you, Andrew. But if that's what Gus wants to do, then fine. Give him an entire drive. Let him put something together and let's see where we're at. The switching in between, I just don't understand what that looks like. And I think Mike Doty had it on the screen earlier, Eli, that you flashed up there. It's super predictable. When Gatewood's in, you know what we're going to run. And I know everybody says that, hey, well, Joey Gatewood is, he's a running quarterback. Can anybody name me the signature Joey Gatewood run this year? It isn't like he's Cam Newton, like ripping off 30, 40-yard runs where we go, wow, look at that dynamic. He's 3, 4, 5, 6-yard runs, and he gets tackled out of bounds, and we move on to the next one. So I understand he brings a dynamic, but I think if you want to put a package of plays in there, give him an entire series. Switching in and out does not make any sense. I don't know why to Gus that he's not recognizing defenses are going, okay, they're going to run this one. Gatewood has absolutely zero threat to throw the football. I think Elo is a better threat to throw the football than Joey Gatewood is when he's in the field. So if you want to give him a series, fine. If he adds a dynamic, I don't want to be conspiracy theory, but that's what we do best here in the Sons of UCF. My conspiracy theory is, hey, you know what? Gatewood, come to play UCF. We're going to get you in the game. I feel like there's, he got Joey to come to UCF, and there was maybe a promise of some playing time there. And so he's trying to find ways to make that happen. But if Mikey is playing well, I don't know why we roll the dice and bring in Gatewood. Yeah.
So when does when does Joey Gatewood get moved to tight end? Because I think that's his future.
Yeah, 3 games ago is what I would have thought. I'm confounded by the quarterback stuff too, because Quadri's now a receiver. Parker Navarro was on kickoff coverage 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati. So Gus is really rolling the dice with his quarterback room because, God forbid, knock on wood, something happens to Mikey Keene. Then we're stuck with Joey Gatewood, who is not a throwing threat. Parker hopefully is not going to get a shoulder popped out on coverage. Andrew Brito took the kneel down this week. So is he the de facto third quarterback? Gus is I don't want to call it arrogance, but his decision making with the quarterback room is absolutely interesting to me. And maybe he knows something we don't know about Dillon Gabriel's timeline, so he feels comfortable doing that. And maybe that's where he's the head coach and the 3 of us aren't. But his quarterback rotations and everything he's doing there just absolutely every week has me just scratching my head.
Andrew Brito to me is the designated survivor quarterback. He's the
absolutely, yes.
That you have in the different room watching the film. Because if anything happens and there's COVID, whatever, he's the guy you want at that point because you got to have someone.
Yeah, he's Hayden
survivor.
He's Hayden Kingston with longer hair.
Well, let a little more FBS experience too.
Perhaps.
Kingston. But let me ask you though, Dillon Gabriel, because I think that is an interesting question. I mean, there's been some teases, if you will, whatever. I don't know how you want to describe it, but there's been some hits. I mean, Gus has said on the radio shows that they hope to have Dillon back. You've seen photos of him in pads. I mean, that SMU game, and, Drew brought this up on our podcast this week. From a team standpoint, if they win out, they have a shot still to make the conference championship game with some help. Obviously, a win with SMU.
But it's there.
Yeah.
Right. A win over SMU has to happen for that to happen.
Yeah.
And Dillon gives you the best chance. So is this partly, do you think we'll see Dillon Gabriel back? Probably by the SMU game, I think, if it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think, there's hints out there. I think Dillon even threw a hint out this week, which was interesting because he showed some practice footage on his IG, but it was clearly old because RJ Harvey was in the backfield. So why tweet that out or why post that? I don't know. Gus is obviously hinting about it. In my mind, I'd love to see Dillon play a little bit against Tulane. Not a whole game. If he can get in and get a little bit of the rust knocked off him against Tulane, which I know they give Cincinnati all they can handle today. has not necessarily been a top tier team. If he can get the rust knocked off a little bit against Tulane, get a couple series, I think that helps you going into SMU, who you think is going to be a good team. But if he can't come back by SMU, then just sit the rest of the year. I mean, don't come out there for UConn. I think we can beat UConn and Green UConn without Dylan. So if he can't come back for SMU, sit the rest of the year. But if he can play, if he's healthy, I'd love to see him get a couple of series against Tulane just to kind of get the rust knocked off, and then see what Gus can put up against SMU. Because here's the thing: if I'm SMU, I've only got 2 games of tape on a Gus Malzahn, Dylan Gabriel style team, right? One was against Boise State, which probably is applicable. The other against Bethune, I don't know what you take out of that, right? Because it's obviously a blowout game. So what do they really run? So if you want to have a schematic advantage, Sonny Dykes and those guys at SMU are going to look at that and go, what is Gus going to do with this guy? That gives us a bit of a schematic advantage. So I'd love to see him get some rust knocked off. If he can't, that's fine. If he can get back for SMU, I'm all in favor of that.
I think that's interesting. So you wouldn't bring him back. Let's say he doesn't come back for SMU, but you wouldn't bring him back. Let's say if he was available for the Cows game.
I wouldn't. No, I mean, at that point,
you feel comfortable you can win without him in that game.
Yeah, I think we can win without him at that point. And I guess it depends on what his lean is in terms of what next season looks like, right? Elephant in the room, obviously, he has the ability to go pro if he thinks that's an option for him. Obviously, he has the ability to transfer. Hopefully, that doesn't happen. So it depends on what he thinks his future is at UCF. If he's thinking that he's coming back, then don't waste him on a Green UConn game and another injury, and then he's out for a bowl game or whatnot. I say sit him at that point if he's not ready to come back by the Cal game.
Yeah,
I also
has to be 100%. You know,
yeah,
if you're not 100%, it's not worth the risk. You know?
No.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
I agree with that, and I agree. Let me ask you both this: you mentioned the quarterback room; it's kind of a little goofy. Quadri now is a wide receiver, and they're moving everybody. Gus kind of inherited this quarterback room. Could it be that he's basically kind of telling you that, we're going to go, we could do better at quarterback here down the road here?
Well, I think he's telling you that across the board. I think there are plenty of guys who played a lot under the Heupel system, both offense and defense, that just aren't playing right now. And you're like, wait, why isn't Derek Gaines out there? Derek Gaines was a guy that we saw play a ton last year. You know, he's not cracking the field very much. You know, so I think you're seeing that across the board, guys that you thought were going to play a bunch that aren't getting playing time. And I think it's interesting. You're right. Clearly, we know that he's bringing in Thomas Castellanos. We know he's going hard after quarterbacks. I got to imagine he's saying to himself, this is not the quarterback room that I want. This is not the quarterback room that outside of maybe Dylan Gabriel that I think can do certain things for me. I think in a perfect world, I don't even know if Mikey Keene matches with the Gus style system that we've seen in the past. I think he's kind of making it make do. And that's not a knock on Mikey Keene as much as it's just, I think Gus is looking for certain quarterbacks. And I think that's his way of saying there's some guys in skill position players that we think we can leverage, but outside of Ryan O'Keefe, I mean, he's not really using anybody from the Heupel system in a really prominent role, right? I think other guys, Brandon Johnson just got here, so he's not really a Heupel guy per se, right? So we're not seeing a ton of those holdovers. Now, granted, there weren't a bunch of those guys to lay around still, right? But I think he's clearly saying that he wants a different kind of skill position player than what Heupel had.
Drew, how do you respond to that?
Well, your best players are transfers. You know, Isaiah Bowser is a transfer. You know, you look on the defense side, Big Cat Bryant, Bryson Armstrong. You know, they're transfers, and those guys are making immediate impact. You know, in a material way. So that's usually a sign of the guys we have just really aren't good enough for what we want. And I think it's going to be a couple years. That's why you always say give coaches 3 years. You know, everyone wanted immediate dividends, immediate results, and that's why you make the best of what you got. That's not really a fair assessment. You got to give chance for a coach to put his scheme in place, to put his players in place, and let things kind of gel. We're seeing the defense do that in real time, where they really struggled early on, and now this last few weeks, we're seeing the defense has bought into the system. They're making plays. The open field tackling it just continues to get better. The defensive backs are in better position to make plays. The defensive line is putting on pressure and getting sacks. Where early on everything just seemed off. You know, 2020 everything was off, and you know a lot of that has to do not only with personnel, but it takes time to adjust. You know, T. Will wasn't going to come in and make magic happen overnight. That wasn't a fair thing to assume. That's not how reality works. You only work with what you got, and it takes time to unlearn and relearn. And I think we're seeing end results, and we're seeing things have to adjust on the fly. Eric Gilliard leads the program. Okay, we don't see as much 4-3 going on. We start seeing more nickel defense because there's shortages. Anthony Montalvo's been playing defensive end. We've had shortages on the defensive end side. You work with what you got. And I can see the coaching staff really hammering that in the offseason to continue to put the pieces they want into play. We're just happening to notice it more in the quarterback room with all these quarterbacks changing positions and just weird decisions on bringing in Gatewood, moving Jones out. And I think Adam kind of hit it on the head where, you're sending a very loud message of this is not who we want. We're going to look for a guy. And Castellanos is the guy they're really, really high on and pushing really hard on.
Well, you mentioned defense. I think if you're asking me, I think the defense really turned when T. Will got away from using Bryson Armstrong in that night position, whatever that other super top secret position he had. Whenever we went away from Bryson Armstrong in the night position, and Justin Hodges seems to have really taken over that role, that's when I think you saw the defense turn. Bryson's now playing more in his traditional role, and maybe that times out with Eric Gilliard leaving. But I think that's when you saw the defense really turn over. I think initially they got a little bit too cute with some of their lineups, and Bryson Armstrong, all due respect to him, I don't know that he's best suited in sort of a nickel back style role. I think he's better suited in the linebacker spot. I think it really changed from that. You mentioned Eric Gilliard today. It was funny. I saw, I think it's William Wells, backup defensive back, was wearing number 10 on the field. And for a second, I saw number 10 on defense. And I was like, wait, what? And then I realized it wasn't Eric Gilliard. Have either, and this is not, this sounds like a cheap shot against Eric Gilliard. I feel like the defense has actually kind of improved since his departure. And I'm not saying he was the reason for it, by the way, but perhaps guys are playing more in position. Perhaps we're getting the 11 best on the field. But I think that coincides with Gilliard kind of stepping out and then Bryson Armstrong getting into a more natural position for him and getting away from that night position, letting that be somebody like a Justin Hodges, like a Corey Thornton, like a Quadric Bullard, whatever the matchup might be at that point.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it was less to do with him, more so that what his departure did for the situation and how they rolled with it. You're right. Armstrong is a natural linebacker. That's what he does. And I think they've gotten even further away from the night position in general. Hodges playing more back than front just because of his size, and it's working. It's working. Technically, Big Cat Bryant is a flex player too, but they're not really using him as a flex. He just moves around a lot on the defensive line, but he's still, used almost exclusively at the end, and it's working. Sometimes it just takes time, and it's all about getting the right people in the right place. And Justin Hodges, man, last 2 weeks, what a breakout he's had. You calling him out perfect, because he's just been absolutely on fire.
Same with Devontae Brown. I mean, he's been a shutdown corner. I mean, he's defended every ball thrown his direction. He got beat over a crossing route in the middle today and a short route, but nothing that really killed UCF. He's been really stout. Actually, it was funny because he had obviously a big game against Memphis, and I went back and I was like, why do I not remember a Devontae Brown play? So I went back and checked. I mean, he's been playing pretty much every snap, and his name is very rarely called, which either means one or two things: one, they're not throwing his direction, or two, he's obviously not giving up big plays. So I think that's a big thing. But I'm curious from both of you guys, Elo and Drew, where are you guys at with Big Cat? Because he came in with a bunch of hype. He was the Big Cat. A couple of games in, obviously he was kind of moving around a little bit. I don't think we saw much out of him. Last couple of games, he's been pretty good. He's been prone to make kind of that mental mistake on the offsides, jumping off here and there. He's missed a couple tackles. Where are you guys at on Big Cat and what he's brought to the defense?
Go ahead first.
Wow, but Drew's let me go first. I think it's been interesting, right? I feel like he's overly aggressive. I feel like sometimes he's got like too much energy sometimes, and that's why he's jumping off sides, I feel like. And you're right, it's not as smooth as you would have disciplined, but when he's locked in, when he's kind of clicking on all cylinders, he makes a difference on that defensive side of the ball. And I wonder if some of this too does he feel like sometimes does he feel he has to do too much? Like, I got to do more things because, the other guys maybe aren't, especially early in the season, Drew, because, Drew, you and I talked about the defense. Teams were kind of attacking other defensive players around him and running the Louisville game, for example. They were running away from him. And I feel like sometimes maybe he's trying to, do too much. I don't know. Drew, your thoughts?
Well, I think part of it is I think we may have overblown expectations. But if you look at his stat line, this is the best year he's ever had. Now, granted, you got to kind of take 2020 with a little bit of grain of salt, only for the fact that he had less games, but he has career high in tackles. He's in a season with the 1.5 sacks that he's had today. He's at a career high for sacks. He's at a career high for tackles for loss. I mean, he had a tackle and a half. He's up to 8 tackles for loss. The best he did was 2018 with 4. I mean, he's breaking his own personal bests, being a leader. I think one of the things that we also fail to take into consideration is not so much the stat line, but the other stuff he does. He's a team captain. He shows a leadership, position that that is important. I remember I was talking to Coach Malzahn after the East Carolina game, and I asked him, what did you say to Mikey Keene before that final drive that they won the game on to get him kind of settled? And he goes, I didn't. Sam Jackson did. Sam Jackson, a team captain on the offensive side. That's what these players do. And you don't see that in any stat line, but the impact that they have affects other players' stat lines. And I think he's had a material role in how this defense has gelled and has come together. I think that's something that we need to not take for granted.
Yeah, I think his presence on the field is a factor, right? I think Louisville put the clinic on what side is Big Cat on. Let's go the other way, right? I think they put the blueprint out there for that. And you're right. I think obviously the expectations were Big Cat Bryant, an all SEC player, right? Auburn guy, right? He's going to come in and just absolutely just dominate. And that's probably an unfair expectation. I think he started slow, but I definitely appreciate how he's come on the last couple of games. And if he can kind of keep this thing up, I will say I do like, and I know it's coach speak, right? It's coach magic. The second half of the season, our second season is here, right? That's what Gus is saying. But I do like the energy they've come out with since he's made that declaration. Now, I've joked around that said that Gus Malzahn is always going to win the post-game locker room speech. That seems to be what he does best. But I do like the second half of the season mantra. And since that, they mentioned it on the broadcast today, that Big Cat recently got called out by the coaches. So I don't know what specifics that is, but he certainly has played much better in the last couple of ball games than we saw maybe from a stat perspective in the first handful of the year so far.
Yeah, in the interviews, he's always very collected, calm, and kind of toes the company line. He doesn't give you bad bites, but he doesn't give you anything that's outside the box. But you could tell there's a fire there, and he handles himself well. And I think maybe that's part of it, when the defense struggled for the first half of the season. And, I think that was a great way of putting it by Coach Malzahn, because you're coming off a bad loss. You want to put everything behind you. You're 3-3. You're halfway, and it really is at 500. It's a brand new season. You're in control of your destiny still. So to kind of challenge him and maybe the other captains to rally the troops, don't just stand there, do something. We're seeing tangible results from something. Obviously, we have the art time, which, a lot of that is structured in the fact of, there's a camera guy there, he's talking. There's probably a lot of things that are said away from the camera that we'll never get to see or hear. Wait,
hold on. Are you telling me that all reality TV isn't reality, Drew?
I know nothing.
What? This is breaking. I don't know if you have sounders there. This is breaking news that all reality TV might not be reality.
Listen, we've learned a lot from that show. Among them, I had no idea that our good friend Jason Beatty sounded a lot like Trace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a ventriloquist act. Ventriloquist act. I've seen it. It's they're good. They should go on tour together.
I don't know. Have you heard earlier in the year? I did a great Andrew impression of evidently.
I did. Yeah.
He does me better than I do me.
Yeah. I never sounded smarter than that segment on the show, but we can. What are you going to know?
Yeah, I just like that they both had matching khaki shorts on. I thought that was cute.
They're styling.
I don't know if they coordinated in advance. I don't know. I'm not sure what the protocol. And they had the same tripod, it appeared, which is a camera apparatus for everybody who's thinking elsewise. And then the same khaki shorts.
All right.
Gotta clarify.
Let's talk about. I want to talk about while we get you for a couple more minutes. You've been very generous with the time here. Sons of UCF podcast. Tell the audience about it that haven't had a chance to check it out. It's you and Mike You've done it for a few years. It's on Tuesdays. He comes out on all the podcast devices, wherever you listen to. Just tell us about the podcast and how you and Mike, because I get asked this question when I've been on the show and when people just ask me randomly, how did you and Mike come together?
Yeah. So, right, wrong, or bad, I've known Mike for 25 years. We went to high school together, went to UCF together. We were college roommates for all 4 years. And so typically what you hear from the podcast is just what Mike and I would have been talking about on the phone anyway. And for some reason, we decided to hit the record button one time, and then actually somebody listened to it. And then 150 plus shows later, here we are. So legit, the show is just two friends talking UCF, because that's what we were doing anyway. And then slowly over time, we got a chance to add in some interviews, have some really cool people come on and talk to us. And it's really kind of been a dream for us, right? To be able to look at my phone and not to pull an Eric Lopez name drop, but to look at my phone and have, Ryan Schneider and Mike Kruzak and George O'Leary's phone numbers in my phone is absolutely just mind boggling to me, because I never thought that'd be something we'd be doing. So it's really just two friends talking UCF and trying to find ways to entertain people and make people laugh. And then one day, Trace Trelko just kept calling me, kept texting, knocking on my door, like, I want to be a part. So fine, Trace. Okay, whatever. So we found a live show edition that brought Trace in, and he's been a really fun addition to the crew, because obviously, as you guys know, he's in Orlando, so he's able to get to the games. He's able to get a ton of sound. And he just brings a professionalism, perhaps that Mike and I don't always bring to the show. So it's a lot of fun. It's really the genesis, just two or three friends talking UCF, and we're not pretending that we're going to be scoop makers. We're not pretending we're Stephen A. Smith. We're just really talking sports. So it's been a lot of fun. The fact that, people listen to us for a couple hours a week is just mind-boggling. I can't get my family to listen to me for 10 minutes. And yet I get people that actually listen to me talk on a podcast for an hour is just mind-boggling. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been cool to meet guys like you two, and just all of a sudden be a part of the UCF family from that standpoint. Going to tailgates and people are like, "You're the Sons of UCF guy," and I'm like, yeah, okay. It's just kind of surreal. So it's been a lot of fun, and definitely appreciate all the people who've supported us along the way, even you guys.
So when Trace was trying to get on your show, did he stand outside with the boom box? We know he's a little old school.
Yeah.
In that, I mean, is that how he got your attention? Did he start, blasting
he's old school
ballads on the boombox?
Yeah. No, he actually sent a VHS tape of his highlight reel to us and said, "Look, this is my air check tape if you guys want to listen." And we were like, "Air check? I don't even know what that means." But no, Trace has been he was a big supporter of us early on. He's somebody who I've always reached out to. And look, Mike and I are not media professionals. We didn't study this at school. So he's been someone who's been a really good mentor for us. We reach out and say, "Hey, well, how do you think this will play? Hey, we have this idea. Hey, how should we approach this?" He's just been a really good mentor along the way. And then, through circumstances, he became available and was interested in doing some stuff. And I think he had the itch to really kind of get back into UCF. So the fact that we could team up and come together and find something that is kind of unique. I mean, we're to Elo's point, we're the only Thursday night live show going right now. So
we'll take best UCF live show on Thursday nights.
We'll take the exclusivity, but it's been a lot of fun to interact with. I think the one thing I don't like about an audio podcast is you can't interact with the audience. You don't get feedback. It isn't until after the show's over that everyone's giving you, a hard time on what you said or liked what you said. So the live stuff and kind of what you guys are doing today, you get that immediate feedback. It's kind of fun to be a part of that. So having Trace in there to navigate that and make Mike and I look smarter always helps out.
Well, I mean, I can second that. Trace has been a mentor to me as well. He's given me advice and pointers, and I've asked him questions. And last week he came to me. He gave a book. He goes, "Hey, can I have your autograph?" So what do? I signed it. Eric Lopez.
Nice.
Rightfully so. No, and Trace brings up the questions, though, right? Because he's at all the media scrums, and he will bring up questions to you guys on the Thursday night show, which a lot of people could watch on these same platforms that you're watching this show, as well, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, on the Sons of UCF. But he brings up topic questions, right, that you and Mike have to think about that maybe others don't think about, because he's at the pressers and he's kind of covered the programs, all the programs. And I think that's kind of what makes this kind of you guys a very dynamic group, especially on the Thursday night. Now, I have to ask, because one of my favorite moments of the Thursday night show was when you had Drew on, and he actually showcased his closet of all his jerseys.
Yeah, be honest. I'm in that room right now.
be honest, Adam. When he did that, what was your first thought? Were you frightened? Were you concerned? What was your thoughts when you saw that?
Well, we're a little bit more of a liberal show, so I'm okay with embracing the awkward here. But I did not know it's live, so you don't know what you're going to get. So he's going in his closet. I'm like, this seems to be okay. Seems like a normal person. God forbid nothing is in the closet we don't need to see. Luckily, it was all jerseys.
There's
My
a
favorite
sword
part
next to it. Does that count?
I don't know. It depends. My favorite part about that show, though, is you know this, Elo, because you have control of the broadcast. He stayed in the green room for the entire show, and then literally I could see him, like we'd be talking about a topic, and I can see his head nodding or him doing this, and I just kept bringing him back into the show just unprompted, and so he kind of became like, he became like the disembodied voice, like old around the horn guy, like the stat boy of PTI that just kind of like popped into the chat, and I was like, let's bring him back in. So to me, that was one of our best shows.
I'd like to point out they've never had me back since.
I don't. So the great question. Complaint department is at SignPez on Twitter. He's the guest booker for the Thursday nights,
and he's never had me back on since.
So I can't confirm. Listen, we're all Nick Patty these days. God bless Nick Patty. He puts up with those week after week for some reason, only known to Nick Patty. But that was actually one of the funner shows, Andrew, was having you in the chat and actually I think we tried to work it out for the next couple of weeks of you not being scheduled and just having you in the chat and just throwing you back in there from time to time. So maybe we'll work that out one day just as a surprise.
Well, the problem was he used that as leverage, and he negotiated where he's guaranteed now a segment on the podcast, and he's on here on the postgame show.
That's smart. No, that's smart.
So he negotiated leverage.
We've changed our recording time for the podcast, so it's earlier in the day, and it works out great now because I work from home.
Look what he leveraged, Adam. Look at what he had leveraged out of that appearance. Unbelievable.
Out of that one appearance, things happen. It's all about being in the right place at the right time. But Eric, in all honesty, it was actually easier to watch the rest of the show just sitting at my desk without closing anything. That's actually what started it. I was like, it's just easier just to sit here and let it go. But and I would kind of nod and agree, and they would bring me on. I'm like, okay, I can have fun with this. Let's do
it. Well, you guys know the summer months are tough from a content standpoint. We may do a Voices of UCF like MTV Crib style, right, where we bring Elo in to show off his garage, and here's Brandon Hellwig's linen closet, just something to get some content out there during the summer months.
Oh crap, you can see this giant pile of unwanted computer and video game stuff over here. Holy crap.
I do like the paint scheme, though. I will say, I'll give you credit for the paint scheme.
This was supposed to be the man cave, and my wife and a friend did the paint job, and then now it became the office. But it's still my home away from home. It's got a slider. I've got a mini fridge back here. In fact, the printer that's sitting right behind me, sitting on top of the mini fridge, so I always keep some beer nearby. Important stuff.
Those are essentials. Those are essentials in the UCF podcast world.
Oh yeah, I got to put the UCF diplomas back there because my wife said I have to look like I learned something.
It's not as cool as that Culpepper jersey that Adam's got in the background there.
Well, I mean.
Let's not do Jersey talk, Elo, because we're gonna get the closet again.
No, we don't want
enough
that.
people. I don't know. It's your show. You do what you want to do on this one,
guys. It's grown since that show.
Oh no, we don't need
more in there now.
Save that for your next appearance on the show.
I want some old stuff that I can just give away at this point. I want to get rid of some of it.
Here's my
better stuff.
Here's my last question for Adam. We'll let him go because he wants to watch football. But I do want to brag because the three of us are in the top 10 in college football pick'em, and the pick'ems that Mike set up, your co-host set up. And the only reason, and I keep teasing this, because he was doing a lot of trash talking before the year, like, hey, nobody beats me. Everybody, guys fight for seconds. So he was throwing the gauntlet. So me and Drew have responded. And the three of us are doing very well. If you notice, I keep you out of the trash talking. And I feel like Mike's trying to blame Trace. I feel there's some friction there because they're both they're really way back in the picks. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, Mike, humility, not necessarily one of Mike's strengths in terms of character, but he had a really good year last year. And similar to the 5K that he ran, that he beat everybody in, that he made sure to challenge Rania Jones. And he I think he had a really good head start. I think he felt like he was going to do well this year and just wasn't prepared. I think he didn't do the homework that was needed. And we'll see where we end up. Do you guys have a friendly bet? Maybe you can bet one of Andrew's jerseys on this. Do you guys have a friendly wager going with UCF, Mike?
No, and we probably should have. But I'd like to point out that right now I'm second and Eric's third. So, I mean, we're doing okay.
So I've always wanted to do like a podcast versus podcast, challenge, right? Where it's, the Suns versus Banneret, right? Our picks versus your picks. Losing show has to wear the other show's gear or something like that, right? I think that'd be a lot of fun. Kind of Lebitard-esque, right? When they do the celebrity guest picker against Colin Cowherd, something like that.
Yeah,
so maybe next year we can get that working, where someone's got to, show off. And we got to go to Andrew's closet and organize it for him or something. Who knows what the punishment could be?
It's actually really organized. It's organized by sport and by chronological of when that particular jersey was worn. It's a little bit meticulous. In fact, I've been talking about taking it out and kind of redoing it, but that's going to take a few hours.
Adam, I think we just found your summer content show. When you get Drew on the podcast, just do the whole show on his closet and jerseys. I don't
think there's enough time.
In the summer, there is.
No, I don't think there's enough time in a single podcast to handle all that.
Well, in the summer, you break that stuff up. I mean, content, baby. You just keep teasing it for the next week. You know what I mean? Like, tune in next week where we go through the Jays. You know, I mean, we'll tease it.
On a similar note, did either of you join in on the UCF auction by chance, on the Space Game auction?
I did not. No, I honestly, I don't know if the decals are still available. I thought about buying a decal set because I thought that actually would be pretty cool. But I did not get in the auction. I feel like my wife would kill me. She wasn't happy with this, so I can't imagine that she's going to love a Space Game jersey.
How is that a problem? I mean, that looks great.
So she tries to double up the studio here. Also, sometimes doubles as an office. So she's on like a work Zoom call, trying to blur the background and not show everybody that there's a Culpepper jersey as she's talking about, higher education, which apparently is a problem. Who knew? Yeah, I know.
Just deal with it. Got to deal with it, Drew.
I was shocked too.
Smart move, Adam. All right. Well, Adam, we've kept you long enough, but we wanted to have you on. Thanks for coming on. First of all, thanks because I know you've helped us behind the scenes as well. You've helped Jeff out actually kind of set up. This is our first show being on Facebook and Twitter as well as YouTube.
The tell is the StreamYard logo.
There's no logo.
Yeah, that's a big tell.
At all.
That's a big tell.
We're work in progress. We're not as advanced as you guys, but you've been a big help. You've been awesome to get to know, and we love your shows. And again, we encourage people check you out. Tuesdays usually is when it comes out. Sons of UCF podcast, where the favorite devices, and 8:00 Thursday nights. Most Thursday nights, unless there's a conflict like a football game and things like that. You got Sons of UCF live with Trace, Mike, and Adam live every Thursday night. The most live TV show since Seinfeld. Thursday nights prime time. Adam,
I do want to point out, Adam, that when Trace got hit with the sprinklers, I was there to witness it. It did happen.
Yeah, the fact that video does not exist of that has been really
takes.
That's no excuse. You keep rolling that stuff and just cut out what you don't need. I mean, and then somebody coming from the mist to attack Trace. I feel like there's another story there. I feel like there's a post part of that I need to see at some point.
Well, he's walking towards the side away from the scoreboard, and I'm standing looking towards him as he's doing it, and the sprinklers go off, and one shoots right at me, and I just had just enough time because I was looking to just dive out of the way. But I mean, it went off twice on him, and it's unfortunate that the camera didn't keep running. But he goes in typical Trace wisdom. We live too much in our cell phones and in our videos, and we don't get to create those good memories because you create a video. Are you ever going to watch it again?
Look, I'm all for it. I think the walk and talk to Trace is just becoming too easy. I think he needs some impediments along the way. Yeah, he needs something to challenge him each week. I actually want him to do a walk and talk from JP Gilbert's backyard. Just show up and start walking around the backyard, just see what happens. I mean, I think there's so many options available, and he just needs he needs challenges. It's just getting too easy for him at this point.
I'll come photo bomb him or video bomb him.
Can he get a walk and talk from your closet? Actually, that may be better, where he's just trying on your jerseys, one
that
after
one. I
mean, Trace Troco here, where I'm walking through Andrew's living room en route to his closet, where we will have our next episode of the Sons of UCF live.
Throwing suggestions there.
It writes itself. See, it writes itself.
I mean, I live 2.5 hours away from Orlando, so I mean, it's gonna
could be the problem.
He's been in Cincinnati. He's been in Houston. I mean, he could easily get to your neck of the woods.
Hey, I've got an airport 10 minutes away from the house.
There you go, Trace. Make it happen.
All right. I don't know if Trace will talk to both of you now or you, Drew, anymore after that, but we'll see. We'll look forward to the follow-up on that with Trace on that. I'm sure there'll be a response. Adam and George,
Trace.
Yeah. Adam, thanks again for all the help. And thanks. It's been a blast talking to you, and enjoy it. Send our best to Mike and Trace, and we'll be watching and listening, but enjoy the rest of the day for you.
Thanks, guys. Go Knights.
Charge on.
That is Adam Eaton joining us from Sons of UCF. Awesome. That was fun. We went a little bit of everything on that one. But hey, when you win 49,
a good time.
And where we all did today. That was the beauty of it.
Winning does that. Winning big does that. It cures a lot of problems. Like hangovers and broken legs and hurt backs. Get better, Jeff.
You can follow Adam, by the way, at Sons of UCF on Twitter, and of course they're on all the favorite devices there. You can listen and watch. They do a great job. They're fun with Trace and company there. So we did mention a couple of things before we sign off here. We mentioned we're both in the top 10. As you mentioned, you and I are in top 3. I'm glad you're here to that update.
Yeah, you moved up to number 3. I was already at number 2, so one behind. We're both one behind of the leader. The only difference between you and me is I blow you out of the water in tiebreaker points.
That's because I forget to throw that in there at the sometimes.
That's a you problem.
I know it is. I'm just admitting it. I'm admitting it. I mean, I have a problem. But I want to bring that up because Houston SMU is a big game as we talk. Right, Cincinnati kind of beats Tulane, but not impressive. And you kind of teased this earlier. Michigan State beat Michigan. That's a big win for the Spartans. Top 4 of the first college football playoffs going to come out Tuesday night. I think you and I are on the same page here. I think we both think Cincinnati might be on the outside the top 4. And people are going to flip out and they're going to say, this is the system's keeping them down and stuff. But the last 2 weeks, they haven't been great. And you look at the league like the Big Ten, which I think is the second best conference in college football. I think if Ohio State, Michigan State, they have, one of them is whoever wins the Big Ten and wins out likely gets in. If Georgia wins out, they're likely in. I mean, you got to look better than and Luke Fickell has said this. We have to dominate. Kind of an underwhelming performance by Cincinnati the last couple of weeks, and I'm not convinced that they're going to win this league. I still think SMU can beat them, and they're going to play later in the year. But your thoughts on this whole Cincinnati thing? Because I know everybody's going to flip out, and it's but I they have a chance here, and they're not, and they're kind of disappointing.
Last 2 weeks have been extremely disappointing.
Yeah.
After the curb stomping they put on UCF, they've just all the wind came out of their sails. I mean, they just kind of gone flat, and they won by 19 over Tulane, but most of that was in the second half. You shouldn't be struggling for that long against a team that's really not great. You look at the standings. Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Michigan State. That's technically that would be my top 4 right now, and I would put Cincinnati at 5. Because they don't look like a top 4. This is a case where you need style points, especially when you have multiple undefeateds and you're struggling against teams that aren't really that good. Navy's not that good. You shouldn't be winning by that close of a margin. Tulane, they played tough against Oklahoma, but then they laid eggs throughout the year. So, so they're really not that valuable either. Ohio State has that one loss against Oregon, who's also a top 10 team. That keeps them in the hunt. Michigan's going to have, has that loss, top 10, team. And then Michigan State, undefeated. They got that big win over the Wolverines, yes. As the internal Ohio State fan of me is screaming with pride and joy that the Wolverines lose. Someone's going to have to be on the outside. Unfortunately, Cincinnati is the one who's done the least. At least Oklahoma has the cachet of their prior success and the Big 12. So is the deck stacked against Cincinnati? Sure, because Oklahoma's not that good, and I'm expecting to stumble at some point. But if they keep winning, they're going to keep being propped up.
Yeah. And people flip out about it, but again, only 4 get in, so that's just the way it goes there. Now, you mentioned Tulane, and that'll be what we kind of leave. We'll end it on this. That's UCF's next game, 4:00, ESPNU. It'll be back in the bounce house, so you'll be in the press box.
Mm-hmm.
Early thoughts on the Tulane game?
Tulane is a vast disappointment of a team. They had that great game against Oklahoma. And they've just been kind of dying a slow, painful death ever since. They had a close game against UAB, and then that's pretty much how their whole entire season has gone. So, going to the bounce house, not an easy place to play. They haven't scored 30 points in any game outside of their win over Morgan State. So I mean, they're going to be a little starved for offense. You're facing a defense that's just getting better and better. They're aging like fine wine right now. And if this game today against a bad Temple team is able to kind of just let the light bulb go off, show the team what they're capable of becoming, and being able to replicate it, it's going to be a long day for the Green Wave. And that just, gets UCF ready for a really big challenge, shortly after that.
Should be interesting, right? I mean, and it's an example. Everybody jumped the gun on Tulane after that Oklahoma game. It's like, wow, they're really going to be pretty good.
And now they're 1-7.
Yeah.
Guaranteed exactly. Losing season.
Disappointment, Willie Fritz and company. But I think we'll see what UCF comes out, if they can come out and dominate that game, or do they ups and downs. I'll be curious to see how they respond in that game. Should be fun to see. That's what 4:00. We'll have it all covered for you on the blackandgoldbanneret.com. Make sure you keep it on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Make sure you keep it here on all our social media places. We'll have some big announcements. If you checked our site, actually, in some of our articles on early Saturday, you may have seen some new names in there. We'll make some announcements, some big free agents moves here at the Banneret. We don't just we don't rebuild, we reload here at the Banneret, don't we, Drew?
I'm already here, so you don't have to reload. Just saying, already here.
Fair enough. Knee-jerk reactions will be up on the site as well. That's Drew's great articles as he recaps the game. Make sure you also follow his nightcap, Bryson Turner, who's getting ready for a big Sunday of UCF athletics. Women's soccer opening round soccer tournament against Memphis. Must win for them in their postseason aspirations of the NCAA tournament. Big men's soccer match, UCF and SMU. Big implications in the conference championship race as well as NCAA tournament race. Anne-Marie Blaney, our kind of our contributor, correspondent, will help Bryson recap the cross-country championship. So we cover it all here, folks, on the Banneret. Make sure you check it out at blackandgoldbanneret.com. Make sure you check it out, subscribe to our YouTube page. Make sure you leave us a like. Make sure you leave us a review on our podcast. And, of course, also follow us on our Facebook and Twitter pages. This was fun, Drew. This was fun. Always fun. A nice, easy victory to recap.
Victory is the best medicine.
That is Drew Gluchov. Thanks to, of course, Adam Eaton for joining us here on this special edition of Night Shift for Mr. Drew Gluchov. I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Night Shift.